Okay, well, as you all know, I've been looking into this UFO stuff for a very long time, for decades in fact, and the more I look into it, the deeper I look into it, the less I find. I was watching a couple of episodes of The Basement, I think it is, from the New York Times, where the Great UFO Lie and the truth behind the ALSAP program that this $22 million was spent on. The Pentagon spent their money on, involving, people that were involving Bigelow Aerospace, and people that were telling Bigelow all sorts of stuff just to keep the money flowing, and none of it has any credibility. Yet so lots and lots of people seem to believe it. I think they probably want to believe it, but anyway, I was watching. I do tend to watch these programs. I was watching the Craig Charles one with that physicist that seems to spend the entire episode of the program swiftly looking over her right shoulder. That program is too pathetic, really, for me to comment on in detail. The Craig Charles UFO thing's just absolute drivel. And I saw this on Channel 7, Australian Channel 7, the other day. It's Ross Coulthard again, and Channel Ch7 Spotlight program was looking at UFOs. I suspect, Ross is really talking it up in this. There's no evidence to back any of this up. It's all hearsay. And I think personally it's because the book sales are probably flagging a bit, so Ross needs to generate a bit more interest in it to peddle a few more books. That's my take on it. Anyway, let's just have a quick look at this. This program has lots of holes in it, and I'll point a couple of them out.
People who are in the know, and it's very telling what they're telling me. And I've talked to Navy pilots.
Yeah, people who are in the know are telling him. So who's he talking about? Is he talking about Lou Elizondo and what's that physicist's name? That the rocket scientist, redneck rocket scientist, something Taylor, that was involved with the History Channel and the Skinwalker Ranch. He was the top scientist. He was the scientific advisor for the ALSAP program. This is very worrying, I think, because some of the stuff he presents on the History Channel is just complete and utter nonsense. The Skinwalker Ranch stuff is absolute drivel, putting a car battery on the ground and knocking probes into the ground and passing the current through the ground, and it's beyond hopeless. And he was explaining how Tesla could transmit power through the air, and he was putting this demonstration on, but what he didn't show was how much power you actually had to put into it to be able to light up the light bulb that was about 5 feet away from the tower. So the people that he's listening to, if these are the people he's listening to, have no credibility. It's just nonsense.
Pilots have absolutely nothing to gain by telling me information. They showed me photographs of things that were very unusual. And in fact, there's something in our airspace that we do not control, and that ought to be very concerning.
Shortly after our interview, the congressman showed me in confidence the photographs he was talking about. If authentic, they're extraordinary. They are very clear Polaroid images of a hovering, metallic flying saucer.
Okay, Polaroid images. Okay, so these images are going to be quite old. Why would he show them to Ross and not to us? Very clear Polaroid pictures of a hovering flying saucer. Well, I sincerely hope that he's not talking about the Billy Meyer photographs. It's going to be that sort of vintage, isn't it? If he's talking about Polaroid, that's remember the old Polaroid cameras where you could just take a shot and then just wait a few minutes and the camera would cough out a photograph. That was in the 70s or in the 80s. So these are very old photographs. So yeah, it would be interesting to see them, but if that's what he's talking about, it's more nonsense, isn't it? It's more science fiction rubbish.
Looking at all these videotapes, okay, I've come to two conclusions. One conclusion is you have to be very careful. Some of these sightings are optical illusions, so you have to eliminate them very carefully. The other possibility is they are not ours, that they represent a technology that is hundreds, thousands of years more advanced than us. And if they can go between stars, it means they were up to maybe 1,000,000 years more advanced than us.
Do you think the United States knows a lot more than it's letting on?
The question is the United States hiding something? Well, of course.
Next, the United States government is in possession of alien technology.
I know it for a fact. I mean, I just know that.
Why do you know that?
Because I've spoken to the people who are about to come out and whistleblow on it.
Yeah, they don't have any alien technology. It's complete and utter nonsense. That guy there, Gary Nolan, I think, is a respected immunologist. But it doesn't mean he's not gullible enough to believe people like Lou Elizondo, Hal Puthoff, people involved with the TTSA, Eric Davis. They've all been spinning this UFO bullshit for a very long time. But they never ever produce any tangible evidence to back it up. Some people choose to believe it and some people don't. Whether or not he's an eminent immunologist is completely irrelevant. That doesn't qualify him to do photographic analysis, does it? It doesn't qualify him to look at the actual physics of what the machines he's looking at. His opinion, really, unless it's something he's physically tested, because he tested the Atacama alien, you know, the one that Greer and Dolan were pushing as a real alien, and said no, it's human. So at least he has the integrity to say, okay, just give me something and I'll test it, and I'll tell you if it's alien or not. And he does that. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to swallow these stories hook, line and sinker. Big red flag with that guy is that he said when he was 12 years old he was visited by aliens in his bedroom over a period of 5 weeks. Now you'd have to ask yourself, why would the crew of an interstellar spacecraft be interested in entering a 12-year-old boy's bedroom on a regular basis for 12 weeks? What could a 12-year-old boy possibly be able to tell them that would keep them interested for 5 weeks? Now, I can't get a birth date for that guy, but he looks like he may have been about the right age to be 12 years old when Close Encounters of the Third Kind was released. What do you reckon? Okay, well, let's move this on a bit. Actually, I should have just let that play on a bit, because this bit's worth looking at.
Will you let us know if there's aliens?
No. An alien spacecraft did not crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947.
So there has been a cover-up.
Oh, yes.
Now, an immunologist is not going to know, is he? That's his opinion, because he believes these guys have been feeding him all this bloody ET nonsense. You know, Bill Clinton has an interest in the subject. Hillary Clinton has an interest in the subject. Bill Clinton tried to find out when he was President of the United States, and they told him there was no UFO crash in Roswell. You know, that's what they told him. It's all nonsense. All of it. Yeah, okay, I think this is a commercial break, so I'll just move this on a bit. Okay, here's the next bit.
I got a letter from 13-year-old Ryan from Belfast. Now, Ryan, if you're out in the crowd tonight, here's the answer to your question. No. As far as I know, an alien spacecraft did not crash in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. And Ryan, if the United States Air Force did recover alien bodies, they didn't tell me about it either, and I want to know.
Yeah, he would know. He's interested in it. you know, it's nonsense. There's no UFO crash in Roswell. Just think about it. You know, species have generated, have advanced to such a point that they can engineer spacecraft that can fly between stars. They're not going to come here and crash. It's ludicrous. Absolute nonsense.
Before you leave office, will you let us know if there's aliens? Would you ever open up Roswell and let us know what's really going on there?
So many people ask me that question.
I know it sounds almost ridiculous, but it's actually the real question.
Sounds like a cute question, but it's actually, there are millions and millions of people that want to go there, that want to see it. I won't talk to you about what I know about it.
They want to go there and they want to see it. He hasn't got a clue, has he? He really thinks there's an alien spacecraft at Roswell to see, and people want to queue up and go and see it. He won't say that there was no alien spacecraft that crashed at Roswell because he knows that he would kill the Roswell tourist industry. You know, that town relies almost entirely on this UFO story to keep it financially afloat. So he knows he can't say, he can't, as much as he would like to, because Trump in the past has said he doesn't believe in aliens, which is a bit of a strange outlook when you consider how many stars are out there. I mean, they've got to be out there. I don't think they're coming here though, personally. They may be able to travel between the stars, but there is no evidence of it. There's no evidence of them coming here. There's no tangible evidence of alien visitation to this planet. There's only stories, fuzzy pictures. And Trump doesn't want to say it's all rubbish. There's no spacecraft landed at Roswell, because he knows that everyone in Roswell will want to strangle him. He wouldn't get one single vote from Roswell. And every vote counts, of course, with Trump.
But it's very interesting. But Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
Well, the answer is there's nothing going on, is there? Something supposedly went on a very long time ago, in 1947. There's nothing going on now. All that's going on now is people selling alien T-shirts, alien bobbleheads, plastic flying saucers, and inflatable aliens. That's all that's going on there at the moment.
The Congress has now cleared the way for people to come forward who want to come.
Yeah, well, this is old news. We've also seen a thing from Harry Reid, who set up AllSap, saying he was disappointed that the congressional hearing, they weren't told it was the Russians, because he knows it's the Russians that was buzzing the American warships. Okay, let's move this on a bit. I've got to include this. How cheesy is this? Lou Elizondo looking skyward in front of Devil's Tower, Wyoming. That's probably a fake photograph. That's probably the Devil's Tower has probably been photoshopped in. But how ridiculous is that, really? I mean, Lou Elizondo and Devil's Tower, Wyoming. Yeah, right. Gives you a gives you an idea of just where they're getting their information from, doesn't it? Really, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. They're all UFO nuts, these guys. There's no serious investigation here. They're just UFO fanboys.
The Pentagon's UFO investigation program, Louis Elizondo, he said publicly that he thinks the US government is in possession of exotic material.
Yeah, there we go again, you see. Lou Elizondo supposedly ran this program, this UFO program, and he believes they have this recovered alien material. He doesn't say he knows as fact that the American government has got this material, that he's handled it, he's had it analysed. He says he believes. That means he doesn't know. It's a belief. And if the guy running the program doesn't know, he only believes, then that tells you there's nothing there, doesn't it?
Other people have been more candid. Other insiders have suggested that the United States is in possession of craft, non-human technology.
Right.
What do you think?
I think we've got some craft somewhere. I think that I've talked to too many people that have seen and held this so-called foreign material. And
that so many people that have told him that they've seen it and handled it, and he chooses to believe it. But there's no first hand, these people, these senators and the people that run all this stuff. There's no first hand statement saying, I have done this, I have tested this, I have seen this, I know this as fact. It's all I believe, I've been told. There's nothing to any of that. No alien spacecraft is going to come here and crash. The technology would required to travel between the stars, to build a spacecraft, will be beyond our imagination. It's not going to come here and crash. It's probably going to be self-healing. There'll be backup systems and backup systems. Chances are it wouldn't be alone. So, even if it did crash, it would be recovered. They wouldn't leave any alien technology, no technology or biology on Earth for us to examine. They just wouldn't do that. Even when the Americans went and killed bin Laden, they had a problem with one of their secret helicopters. It crashed in his compound. They didn't leave it there for the Pakistanis to analyze it, to strip it all down and analyze it. They blew it up. They destroyed it. If they could have recovered it, they would have recovered it, but they couldn't, so they destroyed it. And that's what would happen. It hasn't happened, has it? And when it comes to alien spacecraft, the technology is going to be such that it's not going to come here and crash. This is all just science fiction nonsense.
I don't think it's a Chinese technology. I don't think it's a Russian technology. Russian technology.
Even though Senator Harry Reid said they know it's Russian technology that's buzzing the American warships during these exercises.
With Putin's ego.
Just Google. It's Vlad. It's Vlad. UFOs buzzing. Nimitz are Russians. Just Google it.
Landed that UFO on the front steps of the White House, probably get out and ride a unicorn bare-chested and wrestle Joe Biden and get back in it and head back to Mother Russia. And China would own.
Yeah, yeah. Putin will love the rainbow unicorn. He's riding. Bit of a subtle dig there. Maybe not so subtle.
So I think that's out of the question. I think that it's, and I think there's something we're trying to reverse engineer, but the problem is it's so advanced they can't reverse.
Well, there'd have to be a reason why they couldn't reverse engineer it, wouldn't they? Because they haven't been, because there is no device that's claimed to be reverse engineered alien technology. This guy really has no idea. He's just choosing to believe what he's been told. And if he's got people like Lou Elizondo and Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis telling him, then these people aren't credible.
Engineer it to the point of where they could actually build this craft.
So, we'll go ahead and say, we're God. Well, if there's one thing, it's rotating.
And these have been debunked over and over again. Okay, let's just move on to the next bit. And again, I should have let that play on.
When you say the government's been involved in a cover-up, do you think they've been concealing?
Oh, yes.
It's an amazing allegation.
I know it for a fact. I just know that.
Why do you know that?
Because I've spoken to the people who are about to come out and whistleblow on it.
No, he doesn't know it as a fact, in other words. He chooses to believe some people that have told him they're going to come out and whistleblow on it. He doesn't know the government has been covering it up. He chooses to believe these people that have told him that, but he doesn't know it. He's got no first-hand experience of it. He's an immunologist, okay? So he's got you know, this is no different to Ross Coulthard saying that he knows it as fact because people have told him. And it'd be interesting to see if these people do actually come out and whistleblow on it. Personally, I don't think it's going to happen, because you'd be talking about that disclosure that all the UFO fanboys have been chasing for so long. And I don't honestly believe there's anything to disclose. I really don't. I think someone would have disclosed it in an unambiguous fashion, showing tangible evidence long before now, if there was anything to this.
Wow. So you know what's coming?
Yeah.
So then...
So he knows what's coming. Yeah, he's saying with confidence, he knows what's coming. I'll make a bold prediction here. I'll tell you what's coming. Nothing. Nothing whatsoever is coming. More science fiction stories, maybe. Some science fiction books. But zero tangible evidence of ET visiting this planet. That's what's coming.
Has been a cover-up.
Yeah. And there's been an active cover-up. I mean, just look at what the Department of Defense announced last week. They announced an office to study the phenomena. Money put aside. They've said we're going to go back to 1947.
Which is incredible. That's the date of Roswell.
Yeah, 1947.
They said they're going to go back to 1947. This is something new. That's certainly not what they've said previously. They've said that they're only going to take into account sort of fresh information. It's got to be from the military. They're not that interested in stuff from civilians. See, it's not much point going back to 1947 because it's so old, so long ago. You know, there's unless someone has actually got a flying saucer in a shed, you know, could you really keep that secret for all this time? But I don't think so. So, no.
Want a list of every operation that you've done to disinform and misinform.
Yeah, well, there was probably a fair bit of that, but this is ancient stuff. It's going to be a lot of old stuff rehashed. None of it is going to be any evidence of ET. It hasn't been so far, so rehashing it is not going to produce anything new, is it? I mean, they're going to be looking at the same stuff everyone else has looked at.
We just had something go right over the top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object.
I think the probability that we have a captured flying saucer someplace at Area 51 or whatever is very, very small. But let's assume for the moment that it's true. Let's assume that we do have alien bodies, alien technologies, and so on and so forth.
Okay, let's assume that.
Keep it a secret? Of course. We're not stupid. I mean, you don't want to blab to the whole universe all the secrets that you can get from a damaged flying saucer.
And that's exactly why a damaged flying saucer would not be left here by any alien species. You know, the whole thing is ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. And I'm pretty sure that any nation that had any alien technology would be screaming it from the rooftops, because it would make them invincible. No one would mess with them if they had alien technology. So the whole thing just makes no sense whatsoever. It's ludicrous.
Now, the thing I find fascinating is you've had the CIA come knocking on your door asking you to actually do tests on people who have been exposed to UAPs, correct?
Yes.
What can you tell me about that?
Well, the reason apparently that they came to me is because we had developed instrumentation for blood analysis that nobody else in the world had.
Have you been able to determine if any of these people have suffered injuries?
In some cases, not the pilots especially, but for some of the ground personnel, we were able to see damage in their brain tissue.
Yeah, okay. Now, it depends a lot on the circumstances. Not the pilots particularly, only the ground people, mainly the ground people, okay? So are the ground people working in proximity to radar scanners? That sort of thing. That'd be the questions I'd be asking. You know, pilots are in a metal tube, but he's saying not pilots, it's the ground people that seem to suffer from these things. So the pilots aren't going to get near nuclear weapons, are they? They're going to be all loaded on the plane before the pilot turns up. The ground crews are going to be handling nuclear weapons. The ground crew are going to be working probably close to radars. They're going to be using handheld radios. So they're going to hold up UHF radios to their faces, doing a lot of communication like that. So they're having UHF electromagnetic waves going through their heads on a regular basis. So you know, you really need to know the circumstances of this of these people that he's examined. Really, this is not really enough information.
That was considerable.
So this is injuries suffered by people, and is it directly attributable to the UFO?
They claim it. I am relaying what it is that was told to me. The confirmatory evidence that I have are the MRIs that basically show that anybody could look at repeatedly and see that there was damage.
But when you say...
Yeah, okay, so he can see damage, but he's only relaying the stories with regard to how the damage occurred. Okay, so again, this is not evidence really as such, is it?
Damage? What sort of damage?
You would call it a sclerosis. It would be seen as a scar tissue in the body or the brain, dead tissue.
So it comes out as white blob.
As white blob.
So I'd be asking him whereabouts in the brain this occurred. On the left side, on the right side? Was this in more or less the same place in the brain on all of the people that is examined? So might it be just on the right side at the front, or by the ear, or you know, on the other side? Is that person right or left-handed? You know, how are they going to hold a portable radio? How are they going to hold a mobile phone?
We generally call it white matter disease.
After the break, the extraordinary claims of a man who may have alien technology in his backyard.
I can hardly wait. Okay, let's move on to the alien technology in the backyard. Okay, here we go again. So this is quite good fun actually. This do get a bit of a chuckle out of these Ross Coulthard things. Oh, credit to Ch7 News Spotlight there, down in the bottom right hand corner as well. Credit to them. I don't want to fall foul of them. It's only what do you call it? Fair use, commenting on some claims they're making here. I'm not. This isn't monetized. This is just for free. This video.
Our story brings us to Texas. I'm on my way to meet an extraordinary man with an even more incredible story. All I have is a grid reference. He explained.
I've had this thing for over 40 years.
He's talking about the metal ball, the sphere on the chair there.
A part of me now. I've taken it with me everywhere I go, and I can't explain that.
You reckon it's been looking after you, don't you?
Sometimes I feel like it's protected me.
He's looking after him, yet he's sort of living in the middle of nowhere. The only way Ross Coulthard can find him supposedly is with a grid reference. He's got a, what is that, a steer skull hanging up in what looks like a fairly modest accommodation there.
those underwhelming images of UFOs, the distant, blurry images where you can't see much at all. So we've come here to Texas, we're not allowed to say where exactly, to meet a gent who tells us he may well have.
I'm sure there's going to be a few people in Texas that are going to know where there's a bright blue house by a lake.
Solid, testable evidence.
Apart from the fact that the guy gives his gives his name.
Of alien technology. And it's been part of his family's furniture here for over 40 years. Enter Jim Marlin.
Jim Marlin. So he's quite happy to give you his real name, but he wants to remain in an undisclosed location. I think a private detective would take about 2.5 minutes to find this guy.
Jim Marlin is claiming that he's got alien technology. But he's also been an incredibly successful music promoter.
On the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again.
He's the guy who launched Willie Nelson's music career as an outdoor performer.
He must be a bit older than he looks.
He's gone all over America doing multi-million-dollar concerts, and he made a lot of money out of it. And the funny thing is that all through that career, he took this silver ball with him, this silver...
Roll it across the floor for effect. Yeah, it's also secret, this, that he's laying out his entire life story before us.
Sphere.
And this is Dennis Hopper, the movie star. He was one of my absolute best friends. And then that's me.
Very famous actors from a multitude of different Hollywood movies, performers, singers, songwriters.
That's Neil Young.
Jane Fonda.
Well, this convinces me he's met aliens. What do you reckon?
They've all touched this sphere.
Something that resembles Devil's Tower, Wyoming.
I was living in New Mexico, and a friend of mine, Dennis Hopper's bodyguard, wanted me to come out and see his house. It was way out in the desert, in the middle of nowhere. We went out there, and there was a pile of these spheres laying in his yard.
A pile of them.
How many? Maybe 6 or 7. I don't remember exactly. There was just a pile of them. And I was amazed, because I'd never seen anything like these. And I, what the heck is that? And he said...
He'd never seen a sphere before, obviously.
I'd tell you, but you wouldn't believe me. And I said, well, try me. And he said, well, Jim, I swear to God, a UFO came over my house and dropped these out in my yard. And he said, they've been sitting there ever since. And I was amazed at him, and he said, do you want one? You can have one. So I took it.
Again, at the end of the jetty for effect.
Well, I've had it for over 40 years, so I've seen it do some things that I can't explain. Was that...
Or hasn't photographed it, or video recorded it doing anything interesting. All he's ever done is photograph it, show it standing still or rolling across the floor.
I was laying on my back, on my floor, and I was just mindlessly rubbing my feet on the sphere while I was talking to a friend of mine. And when suddenly there was this flash of light, and I was shot across the floor on my back. I was 6 to 10 feet away from the sphere.
Yeah, probably what happened there was that he was rubbing his feet on the sphere while he was lying on the back on the carpet. It generated a bit of static electricity, and he got a belt off it, which made his muscles contract and kicked the ball away from him. That's probably what happened. They kicked the sphere away from him, because he says he was that he was 10 feet away from the sphere, 8 to 10 feet away from it, something like that. Yeah, it's not convincing, I'm afraid.
Be that far away from it. And there's no explanation for that.
Well, I've just given one.
You think that's alien technology, don't you?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do.
That's a huge claim.
I can't imagine what else it is. I just can't imagine why something like this moves around, why it would flash light. But I have since...
Why don't we see any evidence of that?
Seen videos on the internet of spheres just like this one flying in the air, doing all kinds of things, and apparently they're all over the world.
Notice the sphere is on its nice little velvet cushion in front of the television. It does like to watch TV after a heavy meal.
There's a long history in UFO sightings of, as well as the lenticular disc shape that's often seen in classic UFO sightings. In a lot of sightings, and these have been tracked by a British guy called Patrick Jackson, there are these metallic...
Household name?
Silvery spheres seen adjacent to these objects. And so Patrick developed a theory that these spheres are some kind of protection mechanism, that they're stopping bad guys from entering Earth's atmosphere. In the 1970s, a family called the Betts family, they discovered in a forest a silver metallic sphere, very similar to the one that Jim has. And that sphere demonstrated apparent movement, spontaneous movement.
Yeah, if you Google that, it turned out to just be just terrestrial material, and it's one of these stories that got more and more embellished over the years, like most of these ET sort of UFO ET stories do. So there was nothing to that sphere either.
Was investigated though, it was poo-pooed.
Now, the most
Oh, he actually admitted that, blimey.
An explanation for the Betts sphere's movement is that the ball was simply responding to uneven flooring in the Betts family home. It was found to be near perfectly weighted, so that even the smallest deviation might have caused it to roll.
I have seen the videos that you've seen of this ball spontaneously rolling around the floor. And Jim has apparently had this for 40 years. Propulsion inside might we use to conventionally explain it.
Sort of thing you might expect to hear from an immunologist.
Now, I get the impression the Betts family, the family in Florida, they never got an answer, really, as to what their sphere was.
I thought they did.
It was never resolved.
They wanted to know as bad as I did what it was, and they got no answer. In fact, they got it taken away from them, was what happened to them.
So I'm just going to turn the camera around because...
If you Google it, that's not how the story goes.
There's a very nice gentleman here. This is Jim.
Hi, Jim. Nice to meet you.
Gentleman Jim.
So the fact that a scientist of the great reputation of Professor Gary Nolan is at least prepared to consider the possibility that there might be a non-human explanation for the technology that Jim has in his possession is mind-blowing. This is a 50-pound sphere that is unbelievably heavy. It's not doing anything at the moment.
Well, if it weighs 50 pounds, it's not unbelievably heavy, is it? If it was 50 tons, it would be unbelievably heavy.
But Jim tells us that he's seen it move across the room.
It would be good if you could get some
Well, if it weighs 50 pounds, yeah, it could actually move around the room, couldn't it? Because it looks like a pretty old building that he's in there. So if that sort of changes shape slightly during winter and summer, you get a bit of ground heaving, you know, or a bit of stretching in the summer. And it weighs 50 pounds, it's going to roll around on its own, isn't it?
Rust or anything on the surface?
You can analyse it and it'll say, geez, it's rust.
If it's
iron oxide, call 60 minutes.
okay with you, we might scrape some of the rust off. One of the things that Professor Gary Nolan told me to do was to take samples of corrosion that we could see on the side of the silver sphere, because he said that might help him and his researchers figure out what the metals are that the sphere is made of. We need to weigh it. 50 pounds. 50 pounds exactly. I find that very strange. Exactly 50 pounds.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. I find it very strange that aliens would be using terrestrial imperial weights and measures when they engineer devices. Hands up everybody out there that thinks that ET will be using terrestrial imperial weights and measures. It weighs exactly 50 pounds. It's obvious. It's obviously terrestrial, isn't it?
If you hold it on there for me, mate. 32 inches, 81 centimetres. I've got a magnet here.
Well, that's incredible. Must be ET. I think my fridge has been left in my kitchen by aliens because it's got magnets that are stuck to it. What do you reckon?
If this is really alien technology with the ability of anti-gravity, you know, our civilization needs this. And
has anybody there seen the ball exhibiting anti-gravity properties? I haven't seen it hovering around, have you? Haven't seen it flying around. I wonder if them try drilling a hole in it. You know, drill a hole in it and just send the swarf off to the professor or to a metallurgist. Would probably be better than an immunologist, I would think, for analysing metal, but I suppose that certainly can't hurt to have someone have a look at it with an electron microscope, regardless of whether their background is biology or engineering.
I think it's
personally, I'd be sending it to a metallurgist rather than an immunologist. I mean, what's he going to do? Try and cure it?
fall into the right hands.
And there's Ross going back to the airport after that riveting stuff. Okay, well, I don't think there's anything convincing there. I think it's quite amusing. Obviously, that sphere is not ET. It weighs exactly 50 pounds, and a magnet sticks to it. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, I've just skipped over a bit that showed Ross Coulthard taking the samples that he'd scraped from the sphere to Professor Gary Nolan at Stanford, I think it is, University, where he's going to examine it with his electron microscope, or that sophisticated equipment that he has there. But I can tell you with some confidence what the results are going to be right now. In the program they don't give you the results of the test. Gary Nolan says it's going to take about a month to do it, so we'll get the results at a later date. But I can confidently tell you what those results are going to be, and it's going to be that there is nothing unusual. It's not extraterrestrial. That's what they're going to tell you in a month's time. Right, so let's move on.
There's no history of psychosis in your family?
No, no.
Have you ever had hallucinations before?
Sure, on LSD.
Yeah, that's when he sees the anti-gravitational properties of the sphere. That's when he sees the sphere. That's when he sees the sphere flying around and hovering around and lifting off the ground.
And psychedelic mushrooms, sure, back when I was younger.
There are people all over the world.
Yeah, so I'd be saying, when was the last time you saw the sphere hovering? You know, are you talking about 40? He said he's had it 40 years. So is he talking about, has he experienced the ball doing strange stuff when he used to take all these hallucinogenic drugs? Has he seen it since? Has he seen it do it when he isn't taking hallucinogenic drugs? How often does this ball do this? Could you set a camera up and record it? You know, these sort of questions. Ross Coulthard doesn't ask these sort of questions, does he? This doesn't look like a serious investigation to me. This is just a UFO fanboy trying to peddle his bloody book.
Who are saying they've had, well, contact. Often in their bedroom.
And that's the key. Often in their bedroom. Yeah. Because it's all dreams, you know, nightmares and all that sort of stuff. Aliens are not going to come through the wall and visit a 12-year-old kid. Can you imagine, really, you know, an interstellar starship crew sending representatives through a 12-year-old kid's bedroom wall? Personally, I can't imagine.
You're not just a believer, you say you know it, don't you?
Absolutely, I do.
You're an experiencer.
Here we go. Time to break out the box of red flags, everybody.
Yes, I am.
The reason why Jeff Marlin's story is important is because there is a cohort of people across the...
He probably thinks he's driving a Corvette there.
...who claim experiences, including abductions, by aliens. So Jim, let's talk about you when you were a little boy. What's your earliest experience of...
It's got a lot of patience, that metal sphere, isn't it? I mean, it's sitting there and it looks sort of completely inert. It doesn't appear that, you know, it's heard this story over and over and over and over again for 40 years.
The phenomena.
Well, when I was probably...
Anyone would think it was just a dumb metal ball.
Third grade. I think that's when it started. I could land in my bedroom, in my bed, just looking right out the window, when suddenly 3 creatures came through the wall and came into my room. And
now the really peculiar thing too is here that Gary Nolan, the scientist, the respected immunologist, tells a similar story. That when he was a 12-year-old boy, these aliens came through the wall, etc., etc. It's a recurring theme with a lot of the people that are involved in this sort of thing. And it's all when they were kids. Or the majority of it is when they were kids. So it's all dreams and nightmares. They've probably just seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you know, or the Twilight Zone or something. But it's a recurring theme. And I think as soon as you start hearing this story, you can put a line through it. It's just bloody nonsense. Makes no sense whatsoever. Why would a starship crew be interested in travelling, in going to see a kid? You know, going through the wall to see a kid. You know, you come all the way across the galaxy, you're going to pop in to see the President of the US, or, you know, President of China, President of Russia. You know, go to the UN maybe. You know, you're not going to beam yourself through the wall of a kid's bedroom. What are they a sort of roaming band of intergalactic pedophiles, maybe? Because none of these kids can seem to remember what happens after that. They see the aliens appear and then their minds go blank, you know? Yeah, it's nonsense, I think.
I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. I couldn't make a sound. I wanted to scream. I could not. They floated me up out of the bed and back into the kitchen and right through the wall. I can't remember anything after I went through the wall.
So what you're describing to me there is...
So the other thing too is the images of the aliens are always very similar. I wasn't quick enough just to pause that then, but and they're always represented like that. And the reason for that is that the people that invent these aliens don't have the imagination to invent the uniforms that would go with them.
Thing I've heard from...
I mean, can you really imagine? I mean, there used to be a lot of talk about anal probes, didn't they, with aliens? Can you imagine a roaming band of interstellar proctologists beaming themselves through the bedroom walls of young boys and they're stark naked? It just gets... It gets more and more ludicrous the more you think about it, isn't it? It's a drivel.
Many people, it's the abduction experience. And I don't know what to make of that because I wasn't there, I didn't see it happen. What would you say about that to people who might challenge the reality of what you experienced?
Oh, it was a very real experience, and they brought me back through the wall. And as soon as they went through the wall, I could move, I could scream, and I did. I screamed bloody murder. And my parents came running into the room, and I told them what happened.
How much of your position on the phenomenon has been informed by your own personal experience?
I mean, so I did see an object.
Yeah, now, is this the one where he tells the story about when he was a 12-year-old kid? But, here we go, this might be time to break out another box of big red flags. Oh, damn it.
Very close up when I was a kid. I didn't know what it was. It just was a kind of roundish object with, I remember, kind of like 4 or 5 whitish lights pointing down. And, you know, I can't even remember how old I was, 10 or 12, whatever it was. No, I wasn't scared because I didn't know what it was.
It made you think.
It made me think. I mean, and, you know, I think being a scientist is all about being willing to ask the difficult question.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting, because it must be another documentary where he says that, you know, when he was 12 years old, the aliens came through the wall of his bedroom. They did this over a period of 5 weeks. Now he's being interviewed by Ross Coulthard. He's not telling that story. He's telling a story about a glowing object. Now, isn't the story about the aliens coming through the wall a little bit more exciting than just seeing a glowing object? So why isn't he telling the story about when they came through the wall on Ross Coulthard's Spotlight? Yeah, this is sort of seriously lacking credibility, I think. I think the whole thing's bloody nonsense. Okay, now I found the clip I was looking for with Gary Nolan, and this is from another Ross Coulthard thing, UFO and UAP Need to Know news documentary with Coulthard and Zabel. This is a different one. This is not the one that I took the other clips from. I think it was done at the same time though. If you look at the background, I'm pretty sure it was done at the same time. Now this, I think, sticks up huge red flags.
Why are these people being derided for just reporting what they've seen? Because if it is something else like that, it should interest any scientist, in my mind.
You have had other experiences too, haven't you?
Yeah.
Can you talk about those?
You know, this is probably the more unusual one, and again, I'm hardly the only individual to have had this. Is you wake up as a young boy. I would have been probably 6 or 7 because it was in our first house that my parents.
I think unusual would be a significant understatement.
Bought in Windsor, of little men in the bedroom. You know, I mean, I was awake. I knew they were there. I could see them.
Scared?
I can't remember being scared, but I remember telling my parents the next day about it.
Could it have been a dream?
It could have been a dream. But so here's the interesting thing. So there's little men in the bedroom, and it went on for, I guess, a few weeks, and then it just stopped.
So he's got little men visiting him in his bedroom when he's a kid, and it went on for weeks. You know, why do you think the crew of an interstellar spacecraft are going to want to visit this chap, this young boy, over a period of several weeks?
So I promptly forgot about it. What was critical was
he says, "Okay, it might have been a dream." That's a lot of dreaming, isn't it? And then he forgot about it. If aliens visited me, I'd be unlikely to forget about it. I think, you know, all of these stories are the same. You know, they come through the wall, they visit me in the bedroom when I was a child. You know, they were naked. I don't remember what happened after that. Yeah, it's nonsense, isn't it? Absolute nonsense.
About 20.
And I think it sticks up huge red flags all over the place that you've got a guy that's telling a story like this, that he's had personal experience with this, that's doing this investigating, you know, because he's like Ross Coulthard. He's got a serious bias in that direction. He's a UFO ET fanboy.
Years again later, actually here in Palo Alto, I was at a used bookstore, and I pulled out a book, and I'm pretty sure it was either John Mack's or Whitley Strieber's book, Communion. And there on the front cover was, and I can feel the hair on my arms going up, was what I saw.
That's the classic grey alien face.
And I remember I dropped the book because it was like, whoa. And it was a revelation.
Yeah, the Close Encounter aliens as well look the same, don't they?
I guess.
You had another experience in London that I thought was quite important.
Right. Yeah, that was an interesting one because, you know, for no good reason, lying there in the bed in the hotel, I woke up with my entire body.
Again, lying in bed. He's in the bedroom.
Buzzing, like I was sitting in an electric water bath. And I've been in Japan, for instance, where electric water baths are kind of the thing. This was a very different experience. Everything from the tip of my fingers down to the tips of my toes, ears, I could feel this buzzing. I could hear it. But at the moment of waking up, there were, and I can't even call them words. There was words in my head that said, "This is how you connect."
Whoa.
And but that wasn't the word, but that's the best translation of the moment. And after about 10 to 15 seconds of this, I just, and this is why I don't think it was physiologic necessarily, some sort of odd physiologic effect. I just said, this has to stop. Make it stop. And it did.
Yeah, I suppose he has to say that, really, because people are going to be asking him, well, if you've got regular contacts with alien beings, and there's some sort of message that they want you to give the people of the Earth, to tell us to tell the people of the Earth that we're really here. All they'd have to do is turn up at his house, and he could go to the TV studio and record an interview with Ross Coulthard with an alien, couldn't he? So this whole thing is ludicrous nonsense. Okay, I'll just go back and find another clip that I think is even more telling. Hang on a sec. Okay, and I think this is going to sort of... This is going to tell us what's really going on here, I think.
So I was a paper boy. This was in Connecticut, Windsor, Connecticut. And there was a man at the end of one of the streets who needed his paper by 5:30 in the morning. And so I would always be there, so I knew about the time. It was dark, it was March or so. and I delivered his paper, and then there was basically a copse of woods through which I had to walk to get to the next street to walk the other way, and delivered the papers there. Because it was March, there were no leaves on the trees, and as I was walking through the woods, I could see my shadow in front of me and the shadows of the branches around me, which first kind of caught me off guard because I didn't remember the moon being out. But what was more, I guess, dramatic was that the shadows began to move as I was walking, and they were moving as if there was a light behind me that was moving, which caused me to look up.
Does this sound familiar to anybody that's seen the movie Close Encounters?
And see an object right at the top of the trees go right over my head, silent.
You know, this guy's getting an awful lot of attention from this alien species. Why do you think that they would fly across the galaxy to pay this guy so much attention when he was a young boy?
Now,
what sort of object?
It just was a kind of roundish object.
They spend an awful lot of time looking at this guy. They visit him in his bedroom, but he doesn't remember what happened.
I remember kind of like 4 or 5.
And I'd say, looking at that background, it's definitely the same studio, isn't it, from the other Spotlight program. Whether these were all done at one time or not, I don't know. But you know, if they were, I'd have to ask why Ross Coulthard didn't put the story about him being visited by the aliens in the one that aired on Channel 7 television. Probably because it was so similar to the other guy, Martin something or other's story. And of course we got Gary Nolan here is analysing the scrapings from the sphere, and it's going to take about a month to get the results. Now the reason, I suspect they've already got the results, it takes a long time to put these programs together, and the reason that they didn't publish the results in the Channel 7 Spotlight documentary was that the results tell us it's a perfectly ordinary terrestrial sphere. It was made here on Earth. There are no exotic materials in it. There's nothing that suggests anything exotic about it. But they can't tell us that in this program because, you know, between publishing those results and now, Ross Coulthard could sell a lot of books. If they publish the results and say the sphere is just ordinary terrestrial material, then, you know, no one's going to buy the books, are they? Or far fewer people will go and buy Ross Coulthard's book.
Whitish lights pointing down. But, you know, I can't even remember how old I was, 10 or 12, whatever it was. No, I wasn't scared because I didn't know what it was. And I didn't immediately say to myself, I mean, this would have been 1972, 73.
Okay, 72, 73. Okay, so he was 10 or 12 years old. So I thought he said that he was 12 when they visited him in his bedroom, but apparently he was younger than that. I think he said he was 5 or 6, something like that. But he was 12 when he was the paper boy. So this is before the movie Close Encounters came out. I think Close Encounters was 1977, 1978.
I didn't say, oh, there was a UFO, because I didn't even know what a UFO was. And it really wasn't until about 20 years or so later that, as I paid attention as anybody does to movies and things and UFOs, and it kind of clicked.
Yeah, it clicked. Now he's seen Close Encounters. It probably wasn't 20 years later. It was probably 5 years later. It's about 1972. So, yes, I honestly don't think, it's personal opinion of course, but yeah, I don't think this guy's credible. In this regard, I'm sure he's an eminent credible scientist in his own field, but when it comes to this stuff, no, I really don't think so.
In my head, I said, wait, what was that what I saw? And so, you know, that story is like the story of many people. And so I now look at that as, I would call it again, preliminary evidence, preliminary data. I said, okay, well, that's worth understanding. And if other people are seeing the same thing, that's a kind of confirmation. So why are people, as I've told you in prior conversations, why are these people being derided for just reporting what they've seen? Because there's
no evidence of what they've seen. That's the big issue. There is no evidence that any of this is happening. That is the big issue. You know, it's an extraordinary claim. It requires extraordinary evidence. As the Japanese guy Michio says, you know, if you're interacting with aliens and you're being abducted by aliens, just steal something from the spacecraft. You know, maybe see. So there's actual physical evidence that something is really happening, and it's not just all dreaming, and it's not just all made up stories. That's the big problem.
If it is something else like that, it should interest any scientist, in my mind.
Yeah, but you know, I would, I'd just refer you to the previous question. You know, why would a Starship crew be interested in following this guy around as a young boy, spending 5 weeks keeping an eye on him? If they wanted him to give some kind of message to people of the Earth, why wouldn't they visit him now? Why couldn't he take an alien or two along to be interviewed by Ross Coulthard? You know, and he could say, you know, here's proof. They've let me taken some sort of the equivalent of blood samples, and I can show you those. I've analysed them, and they're not terrestrial. Well, it doesn't happen, does it? All right, and there's one other thing I'd like to show you. Okay, this I think sticks up a huge amount of red flags.
Professor Gary Nolan confirmed he believes that the memo is authentic and that it records real events.
Now this is the Admiral Wilson memo, you know, Eric Davis and the Admiral Wilson memo. No provenance for the memo, of course. Admiral Wilson says it's nonsense. Yeah, this guy chooses to believe it.
Have a listen to what Gary told me. Are you aware of a document called the Admiral Wilson document?
Yes.
Do you think it's genuine?
Yes.
Look at that, without hesitation. He's swallowed this hook, line and sinker. He's happy to accept it with zero evidence, with zero provenance. It's not an official document. It was a notes typed up by Eric Davis. Eric Davis, of course, along with Lou Elizondo and Hal Puthoff and a few of the other usual suspects, involved in the TTSA, the To the Stars Academy. Send us your money and we'll build a starship. That's what the TTSA was all about. Send us your money and we'll research this. Send us your money, we'll build you a starship. That's Eric Davis, Lou Elizondo, Hal Puthoff.
Wow.
I mean, I know Eric Davis, and you know, Eric is of a kind of character that it's just impossible for him to lie.
I think this guy should really do a bit of research before he sort of makes more of a sort of goose of himself. It's not impossible for anyone to. For anyone to lie. Anybody can lie.
The significance of that document is that...
I think it's fair to say, this is personal opinion again, of course, that you can put a line through the credibility of anyone involved in the TTSA. The TTSA was, I don't know if it's still going, if it is, then, and still is, a joke. Yet this guy has swallowed it, hook, line and sinker.
The former immediate director of the Defence Intelligence Agency, Admiral Thomas Wilson, allegedly had a conversation with Dr. Eric Davis, a renowned physicist, where he imparted his discovery that there was a secret UFO reverse engineering program going.
No, he didn't. Admiral Wilson actually denied that. Admiral Wilson says he never said any such thing.
On inside the US government, where they were hiding recovered spacecraft.
No, that's not. Actually, I should. It's going to be too long a video, but I should try and find the Admiral Wilson response. But he certainly doesn't say that. He certainly does not mention alien spacecraft, recovered alien spacecraft. This is all embellished beyond reason.
And it was being hidden in private aerospace, in a private aerospace corporation. The journalist in me, Gary, thinks Americans can.
So that would explain why there's no evidence of it, because you can't bring out a Freedom of Information Act request against a private company. That does make sense, but I don't believe it. You know, in the UK, if it was the UK or Commonwealth, it would be BAE Systems. In America, it's going to be sort of people like Grumman and they've got a number of aerospace companies. But yeah, I don't believe it. I think someone would have come forward, someone who would say, you know, my conscience won't let me keep this a secret. Here is the tangible physical evidence that we have an alien spacecraft, or, you know, parts of alien technology. So that hasn't happened, so I really don't believe it. It's more science fiction nonsense. just as the memo, just as Ross is saying there, that Admiral Wilson said they've got recovered alien spacecraft. He never said any such thing.
Can't keep secrets. I mean, everything leaks in this country.
And this is an example of it.
Okay, so you take that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so where's your tangible physical evidence, Gary? Why don't you hold up a piece of a flying saucer? Something somebody's given you that convinces you that this is going on. Something other than you believing all these science fiction stories. There is nothing, is there? There's nothing beyond this guy's belief.
Ultimately it did leak.
Ultimately it leaked. But what was interesting was that how it was found. It was found in Edgar Mitchell's effects after he died. So it wasn't like anybody went out of their way to...
Oh, well, again, you know, Edgar Mitchell was another UFO fanboy. Edgar Mitchell was one of the people that was involved in meeting Admiral Wilson, along with Eric Davis. And Admiral Wilson says the only reason he agreed to see them at all was because Edgar Mitchell was with them. He'd never heard of these other guys. He'd never heard of any UFO program or anything else. He humoured them. So, you know, and it's another recurring theme, you know. It's like Bob Lazar. Oh, I didn't want to do this interview. He's done hundreds, if not thousands. You know, oh, we didn't want to wave this in front of everybody's face. It just appears in his stuff, you know. Well, that may well be how the story goes. There's no provenance on the Admiral Wilson memo. Eric Davis could have typed it up a week before he showed it to this Gary Nolan guy. This whole thing is nonsense. Yeah, okay. I think that'll do. That's about all I can. Stomach of this particular stuff. I don't think Ross Coulthard is investigating this, to be perfectly honest. I think he's a UFO fanboy, and he doesn't ask any significant questions. He doesn't ask the right questions. He doesn't ask the sort of questions that will reveal this as being nonsense. All right, well, I think that'll do. Again, thanks for watching, and if you've made it this far through this video, it's quite a long one, this one. Thanks for watching. Maybe I'll catch you again.
I get a lot of emails from people that have claimed that you're barking up the wrong tree. The aliens are not there. The aliens are here. They visited us. They're here. And I say, what proof do you have that the aliens are here?
Good on you. That's exactly right. What proof do you have that the aliens are here?
And they tell me that they've been abducted. They've been kidnapped by aliens in outer space. Well, I have a word of advice. If you have ever been kidnapped by an alien from outer space, for God's sake, steal something. I don't care whether it's a paperclip, an alien pen, an alien calculator. Steal something. Because afterwards you can say, aha, look, proof.
You want to see the evidence.
Exactly. That's all any of us serious investigators, people that have a real interest in whether this is really happening, This is what we always say. This is all we've ever said. Show us the evidence. Don't show us fuzzy pictures. Don't tell us science fiction stories. Show us the evidence. Nobody ever has. There is zero evidence of ET visiting Earth or people being abducted.
I'm a physicist. We live and die by the evidence.
When it comes to evidence, nothing beats a good witness.
Danny, not take one.
Of course it does. Nothing beats a good witness. What a load of crap. Witnesses can lie through their teeth. You know, witnesses can be delusional. Tangible physical evidence would beat a witness every single time. And this guy considers himself an investigative reporter. This is extremely poor. This is very, very weak.
Ross, you've interviewed many fascinating witnesses as part of your investigation. Absolutely, gentleman now.
Absolutely. This is Damien Knott. Damien's probably one of Australia's foremost unidentified aerial phenomena researchers. And some of the images you've obtained, the videos, the photographs, they're quite extraordinary. But there's one incident I really want you to talk about today, which is 3 years ago, you had a very harrowing incident in your front yard. Tell me what happened.
Oh, 3 years.
A harrowing experience in his front yard, yeah, right. Mind you, he's Australian, his front yard might be 3 kilometres square.
I was working on a documentary, and a UFO documentary we've got.
Surprise, surprise.
And I was getting a bit tired, you know, it was getting late at night, and I went outside. I looked up to the sky, and just above the tree, to the left of the tree outside my home, it was about maybe 10 feet away, and a ball of light had a big...
Okay, now look, oh, this is on the big screen, unfortunately this is on the hard drive, recorded this off air. Now look at where he's gesturing here, okay, he's sort of gesturing, there's the ball, and they've put the ball there, okay, he's showing you where the ball is. It's 10 feet away, this glowing orb, this glowing ball, okay.
And it was a purplish blue ball of light out of nowhere, maybe no bigger than a basketball. It was there and it was gone. Wow, what did I just see?
And were you aware of any physical symptoms that you were suffering as a result of exposure to that light?
I wasn't until a few days later.
What happened?
Initially it started as burns, like a sunburn on my arm. Like a regular sunburn, but not one that you could touch, like if you were burnt by the sun.
Okay, so you're seeing he's got his arm is burnt now, okay? So this is a result of the glowing ball that you saw him gesturing was about 10 feet in front of him, slightly above his head.
And you could touch it, was a bit sore. This thing, you couldn't feel it. And it got worse, it turned into blisters over a period of about a week and a half to 2 weeks.
They're harrowing photographs. And I know a lot of people watching this might be thinking, this is silly, you know, how can an object like a light ball,
a little ball of light,
how can it cause injuries like that?
Yeah.
But as I understand it, it's now being taken very seriously by, of all places, Harvard University. There's this...
Well, if I was Ross Coulthard, I would be asking him, if this was as you've described, you know, 10 feet in front of you, slightly above you, why is your arm, one arm burnt? Why isn't your face burnt? Why isn't the other arm burnt? You know, if it was any kind of radiation type electromagnetic field, something like that, it's got to go through any clothing. Certainly electromagnetic radiation probably would. He's not, this guy's not an investigative journalist. He's not asking the right questions. You know, why is it only one arm? Why wasn't your face burnt? Why are there no images of your blisters all over your face, all over your forehead, over your ears? over the other arm. Why is that?
Study that's being done. Tell me what they've said to you.
It could be an out-of-world radiation.
It could be an out-of-world radiation. He's probably put his arm in a microwave oven or something stupid because he's a UFO nut and he wants to peddle the UFO narrative. I mean, it could be an out-of-world radiation. I mean, that, yeah, you'd need more information than that, wouldn't you? I mean, that just sounds like a line from a poorly written science fiction story.
Told you that.
Some sort of exotic exposure, whatever that means.
And again, Ross Coulthard is not asking for the details. In what way is it exotic? Are we talking beta, gamma, electromagnetic? You know, what sort of off-world radiation are we talking about? You know, UV, X-rays, gamma rays. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Why is this so non-specific? What a lot of nonsense, absolute drivel.
This is the interesting thing, Mike. That
I'd be interested to find out what this guy actually does for a living. Yeah, he doesn't work at a foundry by any chance, does he? A microwave oven factory.
Damien's not the only guy that's suffered these kind of injuries. There are CIA agents, military officials, pilots of military aircraft in the United States. Whatever these objects are,
and again, you know, he's showing a debunked, that green image there was a debunked, that was an aircraft. That's an image that's been debunked over and over again. This is really awful, this program. It's incredibly biased. It's obviously a UFO fanboy production. Contains zero facts really, in the way of, certainly with regard to ET or ET visitation. There's no evidence. You know, this guy here with the burnt arm story, I think, is just nonsense, absolute drivel. And again, Ross Coulthard isn't asking the right sort of questions. He's not asking. You know, if you're investigating something, you should be asking the right questions, not asking one or two very soft questions that are going to give the impression there's something to the narrative you're trying to peddle. That is not investigative journalism. Why didn't Gary Nolan tell the story about when he was a 12-year-old kid, the aliens were coming through his bedroom wall over a period of 5 weeks? That's a much better story than the story he told here. Why was that? I think it's because it's all rubbish. These guys know it's rubbish. Goodness knows why they're peddling all this complete and utter nonsense. Alright, well, I think that will do, to be honest. I think it pretty much ends here anyway. If it doesn't, I'll include another clip, but if it does, as always, thanks for watching, suffering through to the end. I had to grit my teeth to get through this, to be perfectly honest. It's pretty awful stuff. And maybe I'll catch you again.